AP Cram, the AP Human Geography exam. Free response question 11. Economies of landlocked African countries. Remember that section 2 consists of free response questions. There are 3 questions that should be formatted as short essay answers, and you have 75 minutes to complete them, so allocate your time properly. The free response section is 50% of your exam score. You're required to define and explain and apply geographic concepts and also interpret geographic data. Okay? Identify and explain challenges landlocked African countries face in developing viable economies. Okay, so an obvious challenge faced by landlocked African countries in developing a viable economy is access to the sea. And what is the implication of this challenge? If there's no access to the sea, there's going to be lack of easy access to maritime trade or ocean resources. Okay? A second obvious challenge faced by landlocked African countries in developing viable economies is the increased costs of imports. Now, why do these increased costs occur for importation to landlocked countries? I'll give you a moment to think about that. These increased costs are due to customs, tariffs, tolls, obviously distance, or transportation costs. Okay. A third obvious challenge faced by landlocked African countries, similar to the prior index card, in developing viable economies is the increased cost to export goods. Now, why do these costs get amassed? Like, what do they result from? I'll give you a moment to think about this. Well, similarly to the increased cost of importation, the same thing applies to exportation. You have customs, tariffs, tolls, distance, and transportation costs. Another challenge faced by landlocked African countries in developing viable economies is limited road or rail transportation for imported goods in bulk. What results because of this lack of infrastructure? I'll give you a moment to think. The overall result is what you would call more break of bulk points. So, break of bulk, meaning there's going to be interrupted flow. There's not going to be a continuous transportation flow. And, this obviously would incur increased costs just for transportation. Another obvious challenge faced by landlocked African countries in developing viable economies is economic cooperation. Okay. And basically, what is this as it applies to this scenario for landlocked African countries? I'll give you a moment to think of an applicable answer. Well, communications needed between landlocked and bordering states, okay, it's absolutely essential, including provisions and resources under the law of seas. So this is definitely something for you to review a little bit. I don't suggest spending forever on it because there's tons of other stuff to learn for this upcoming AP exam. Okay. Okay. Another challenge faced by landlocked African countries in developing viable economies is vulnerability. Vulnerability. And how do these landlocked countries become vulnerable? I'll give you a moment to think about this. Well, they're vulnerable because they can be cut off from global trade and or political support by hostile neighbors, okay? And they can also be economically dependent on a colonizing ruling body from like another country, okay? To traditionally a European country, not another African country.